These sickos thought they'd finally found their perfect sacrifice. They wanted to break her, to use her life as a message to the world. But they just made a fatal mistake because they didn't realize this girl's father isn't just coming for her. He's the world's deadliest monster. The story kicks off deep in a dense jungle where a couple named Lily and her boyfriend are searching for somewhere to camp. They spot a sign marking 1 mile and assume it'll lead them where they need to go, so they push further into the trees. What they don't know is that they've just sealed their fate. That trail isn't headed toward any campsite. It leads straight into a nightmare. They find a quiet clearing and start to unwind, but the calm doesn't hold. Without any warning, armed strangers emerge from every direction and close in around them. 2 men seize Lily from behind while her boyfriend charges forward to help her. One of the attackers fires a crossbow bolt directly into his leg, dropping him instantly. The group finishes him off without mercy and hauls a screaming, terrified Lily off into the dark. The story then pivots to introduce Alex, a young athlete in the middle of a soccer match with her friends. Cheering from the sidelines are her parents, Danny and Jenny. It's a milestone moment for the whole family because Danny is a retired soldier who's finally home to stay. After a decade of deployments and missed milestones, Jenny is relieved beyond words to have him back. But the years away have taken their toll. Alex is withdrawn and clearly bitter about all the time her father was absent. Now that high school is behind her, it's time for Alex to leave for college. It's a prestigious school, but it's a solid day's drive away. Danny sees the road trip as a chance to rebuild their bond, so the two of them hit the highway together. At a gas stop, Alex notices her father has his sidearm on him. She can't stand the thought of him being in soldier mode during what's supposed to be their time together and demands he lock the gun in the car's safe. Danny's instincts are telling him to hold on to it, but he decides winning back her trust matters more, so he locks the weapon away. As darkness settles in, they agree it's too risky to keep driving and check into a roadside motel for the night. The stop turns out to be worth it. Conversation starts flowing, and for the first time in years, the wall between father and daughter begins to come down. They're finally moving in the right direction. Elsewhere, tucked away in a shadowy corner of the wilderness, a very different kind of scene is unfolding. A tight-knit community has gathered in anticipation of a new birth, but the atmosphere is heavy with dread. The baby arrives stillborn, one more tragedy in a long, terrible pattern. This group has been suffering through this over and over again. They are desperate, and desperate people are capable of anything. Come morning, Danny and Alex prep to finish the drive. Alex mentions she doesn't want to hold him back from whatever important mission he's always chasing, still carrying the old resentment. But Danny looks her square in the eye and tells her that chapter is over for good. He's retired, and he's not going anywhere, ever again. Her whole demeanor shifts. For the first time, she genuinely believes him, and she's happy. With the air between them cleaner than it's been in years, they roll back onto the road, completely blind to what's waiting for them ahead. As the drive continues, Alex tries to reach her mother by phone, but the signal fades the deeper they go into the forest. With evening closing in and daylight disappearing through the canopy, they decide to pull over and make camp for the night. Danny welcomes the chance to spend more time with his daughter. They come across that same 1-mile sign and follow the trail, eventually arriving at the exact clearing where Lily and her boyfriend were ambushed. It looks peaceful enough, so they pitch their tent and settle in. Once they're inside the tent, Alex really opens up. She shows Danny her drawings and tells him the truth she's been holding back. She doesn't want a career in soccer. Her real dream is to become an artist. Rather than playing the hard-nosed military father, Danny does the opposite. He tells her he's completely behind her. To keep warm against the chill creeping through the trees, they head out to gather firewood. But the stillness of the forest is interrupted by something faint. Danny's elite training activates immediately. Every instinct is screaming that they're not alone out there. He senses eyes watching them from somewhere in the dark. Danny tries to defuse the situation, calling out calmly to whoever's hiding that they want no trouble and are willing to walk away. But it's a setup. A squad of armed men pours out of the trees. One of them hijacks Danny's car and peels off, while others lunge for Alex. These people think they found an easy mark. They have no idea what they've just walked into. Danny flips a switch and systematically dismantles every attacker in seconds. He grabs Alex and they tear off into the dark forest. They burrow under the exposed roots of a massive fallen tree, pressing themselves into the earth. Alex is shaking. She admits she was wrong to make him leave the gun behind and tells him she's sorry. Without it, they're outgunned and vulnerable. Danny keeps his composure and promises her they're getting out of this. They keep moving until they hit a pair of old rusted train tracks slicing through the wilderness. Without a map or supplies, Danny picks a direction and they follow the tracks forward. Eventually, they come across an abandoned RV sitting in the brush. Danny wants to search it for a radio so they can call for help. Alex is uneasy, convinced it's a trap. They watch it carefully from the tree line for a long stretch, and when nothing stirs, they approach and step inside. But the moment the door opens, a dog erupts in frantic barking, blowing their cover. A man throws himself at Danny, who shuts him down without hesitation. A second attacker joins the brawl, and in the confusion, a third grabs Alex and starts pulling her toward the door. Danny goes into full combat mode, fighting multiple men at once. He frees himself, beats them back, and uses the RV itself to pin one of them against a tree. Sensing reinforcements on the way, Danny pulls Alex out and they vanish back into the forest. Word of the confrontation makes its way to a man named Angus. When he discovers one of his men dead, his crew wants to cut their losses and pull back. Angus refuses. He's humiliated and he wants blood. He orders them to track Danny down at whatever cost and instructs them to pass word along to Stanley, the ruthless leader pulling all the strings behind this operation. The hunt is now official. After breaking away from the RV chaos, Danny and Alex push further into the wilderness. As the sun sinks, they find a small rocky overhang to shelter under for the night. It's not much, but it beats being exposed in the open. They eat what little food they have left, and the weight of everything finally settles on them. Alex voices the question neither of them can shake. Who are these people, and what do they want with us? Danny doesn't have a clean answer. He's been trained to fight defined enemies, but this situation doesn't follow any pattern he knows. Alex then says something that makes it worse. They weren't trying to kill her. They were trying to take her. The realization hangs in the air as they drift into a restless, anxious sleep surrounded by sounds from the dark. Dawn brings no relief. Before they're even fully awake, the snap of branches puts Danny on alert. A man launches himself from the undergrowth, slashing at Danny's throat with a knife. The two wrestle in a savage, desperate fight. The attacker keeps pushing, but Danny's instincts take control. In one final brutal move, he uses the attacker's own blade to end it, but there's no chance to recover. More men break through the trees, zeroing in on Alex. Danny grabs her hand and they bolt toward the river, barely staying ahead of the pack as they cross the freezing current. They run until the ground disappears beneath them. It's a sheer drop into a raging river below, and crossbow bolts are already whistling past their heads. Danny makes the call instantly. He takes hold of Alex and they leap. They drag themselves onto the riverbank, breathless and spent, hoping they've finally shaken their pursuers. But a shadow falls over them. Stanley, the cult's leader, is standing right there with a gun pointed at them. Even Danny can't outmaneuver a bullet at this range. He's struck and badly injured before he can react. Convinced he's finished, Stanley's men throw Danny's limp body back into the river like he's nothing. They take Alex, who can only scream in horror as her father sinks below the surface and disappears. But Stanley's crew made one catastrophic mistake. They never checked whether he was actually dead. Danny was knocked unconscious, not killed. The shock of the freezing water jolts him back, and he claws his way onto the bank, battered and bleeding, but running on something raw and unstoppable. He finds their tracks pressed into the mud and starts following them. He's getting his daughter back, whatever it costs him. Back in the cult's compound, Alex is locked inside a small room when a woman enters carrying food. It's Lily, the same woman from the film's opening. She's visibly pregnant now, a prisoner who has been here long enough to show it. She lays out the hard truth for Alex. There is no escape from this place. She herself has been absorbed into their world against her will, and warns Alex that resistance only makes things worse. Alex has zero interest in becoming part of any cult. When Stanley comes to the room to welcome her with a speech about this being her new home, she bides her time, waits for his focus to slip, then attacks him and bolts for the tree line. She runs hard until she reaches the edge of the forest and freezes. Stanley doesn't even give chase. He just stands behind her with a cold, satisfied grin, because she's just discovered the truth. There is no forest beyond this point. They're on a remote island surrounded by open sea. There's no escape route, no signal, no one to call. And according to Stanley, nobody is coming for her. He has absolutely no idea that the most dangerous man he'll ever encounter is already tracking his way across the water. Stanley's people haul Alex back to the compound, but in doing so, they've made a critical error. They've left a trail, and the man following it has built a career out of finding people in impossible places. The scene cuts to Danny, who has tracked a group of cult members to a remote, run-down cabin. Inside, several of the men are drinking and congratulating themselves, with no idea that the man they threw in the river just walked through the door. Danny moves through the cabin like smoke, neutralizing the group with precise, methodical violence. Within minutes, everyone left standing is tied up and hurting badly. He's not there for conversation. He wants to know where his daughter is. He gives them one opportunity to tell him. When they keep quiet, the soldier in him takes over completely. The interrogation escalates fast, and the cabin becomes a very unpleasant place to be. One young man breaks under the pressure. It's Jimmy, Stanley's own son. To save himself, he reveals the cult's twisted origin story. They retreated to this island because they believe the outside world has become contaminated, and that contamination is what's been killing their children before they're born. Their answer to the problem is to kidnap young women from the mainland and force them to carry on the bloodline. Hearing this, Danny's rage goes cold and absolute. He tells Jimmy without any ambiguity that if Alex is touched at all, every living thing on that island will answer for it. He grabs the cult's radio and puts a call through to Stanley directly. The terms are straightforward. Alex for Jimmy. Stanley, desperate about his son, agrees and promises to bring Alex back from the island for the exchange. Danny knows better than to take a fanatic at his word. While he waits, he systematically converts the cabin into a death trap, opening the gas valves to flood the space with fumes and sealing off the back room as a protected fallout area. When Stanley shows up, he tries to be clever about it. He stations armed men in the surrounding trees and walks into the cabin alone with the blindfolded Alex. Danny is waiting with a blade held against Jimmy's throat, and he makes the rules clear. The room is saturated with gas. One stray bullet and everyone in it burns. The standoff is suffocating as the exchange happens. The moment Danny tears the blindfold off Alex, she shouts a warning. Stanley brought his men. In that heartbeat, Stanley drives a knife at Danny. They struggle, and in the chaos, the blade ends up buried in Jimmy's chest. Stanley's son is dead before he hits the floor. The hidden gunmen pour in through the doors, but Danny had already planned for this. He grabs Alex, throws them both into the reinforced back room, pulls the door shut, and strikes a match. The gas ignites in a thunderous explosion that levels the entire structure. Stanley's men are gone in an instant. Danny and Alex walk out of the rubble, but as the smoke begins to thin, a figure moves through the wreckage. Stanley is still alive, and he has absolutely nothing left to lose. The film jumps ahead to a quieter moment. Alex has made it to her art college, and for a little while, life feels like it's been stitched back together. She hugs her parents goodbye, promises she'll be home for the holidays, and Danny and Jenny drive away proud and hopeful. But in the background, Stanley is already there. He's watching from a distance with a patient, simmering hatred. Months pass and Christmas approaches. Alex is buzzing with excitement about flying home, and she's getting ready to close out the semester at a final holiday party with her college friends. At home, Danny is on the phone with her confirming flight times, and she tells him she'll be there soon. Everything feels right. Until the party ends and Alex walks out and climbs into the cab she ordered. The person behind the wheel isn't a driver. Danny is at the airport watching the arrivals gate, waiting for his daughter's face to appear. His phone rings instead. It's Stanley. The cult leader speaks to him with the measured coldness of someone who has been sitting on this call for months. He tells Danny that killing his son was the last mistake he'll ever make. The choice he's offering is simple. Come to me alone and surrender yourself, or Alex dies. No law enforcement, no military backup. Just a father walking in to face his reckoning. Danny comes home and delivers the news. It hits Jenny like a physical blow. She's terrified, but Danny is already somewhere else in his mind. He's not going there to give himself up. He's going there on a one-man mission to dismantle everything Stanley has built. He tells Jenny to look him in the eye and hears himself promise her that Alex is coming home. He gathers his gear and heads back toward the last place on Earth he ever wanted to return to, the site of the old burned cabin. On the island, Alex wakes up in that same locked room. Lily comes in again, but this time her pregnancy is behind her. She's had the baby, a little boy, and something about her has fundamentally changed. She tells Alex quietly that this island is her home now, and the sooner Alex accepts it, the easier her life will be. Alex pushes back. She tells Lily that her father is on his way and that he can get them both out. Lily just looks at her and shakes her head. She won't walk away from her child. Meanwhile, Danny has reached the mainland dock where the cult keeps its boats. He draws his weapon, but instead of charging in, he does something unexpected. He empties the gun entirely and walks out in the open, with his hands visible, surrendering to Stanley's guards. They laugh at him, strip the empty weapon, bind his hands, and load him onto a boat headed for the island, certain they've broken him completely. What they've actually done is handed him exactly what he needed, a ride straight to his target. Halfway across the water, he makes his move. With a burst of controlled force, he slips the restraints and tears through the guards in a rapid, vicious sequence. He injures them, renders them helpless, binds them, and strings them over the side of the boat as a declaration. He's no longer cargo, he's the one driving, and he's headed directly for Stanley's front door. The film shifts to Thomas, Lily's husband on the island. After Lily was seized from the mainland, she was placed with him, and their child turned out to be the first healthy birth the community has seen in years. The baby is treated like a miracle, but there's a secret buried underneath all of it. The child is not Thomas's. Lily was already carrying it when she was taken. Thomas has known all along and has been covering for her out of love. He's a decent man living inside something monstrous, and protecting Lily and the baby is the only thing that keeps him going. Lily knows she has to do something. While going about her work in the compound, she manages to hide a note and slip it into Alex's room. After reading it, Alex knows exactly what move to make next. She grabs a spoon from her meal tray and starts screaming at the top of her lungs, performing total agony. When a guard bursts in to check on her, she doesn't hesitate. She drives everything she has into him and sprints for the trees. This time, she isn't running blindly. Lily's note included a map. Back on the water, Danny's hijacked boat is approaching the island, but he's not about to announce his arrival by sailing straight to the pier. Before it docks, he slips over the side and swims the rest of the way in. When the boat finally bumps against the pier with the bound guards on display, Stanley understands immediately that his prisoner has completely flipped the situation. Danny is already on the island, and he's hunting. Stanley's fury sharpens when he learns Alex is gone too. He goes to her room and finds Lily's note, immediately understanding where Alex is trying to reach. He sends Angus to cut her off at the docks. In the brush, Alex is moving carefully, but Angus knows how to track. He picks up her trail through the trees and runs her down. She's dragged back to the compound before she gets anywhere near the water. Back at the main house, Stanley confronts Lily about the note. She tries to convince him it was nothing, just a small kindness. Thomas steps forward and begs Stanley to leave it alone, but Stanley is not feeling generous. He strikes Lily across the face and warns Thomas to control her or he'll handle it himself. When Angus returns with Alex, Stanley drops whatever pretense of warmth he had left. He makes a deliberate show of locking his gun in a cabinet directly in front of her, a calculated power move that Alex files away before she's shoved into her room to change. Locked up again, Alex doesn't fall apart. She notices a floorboard that gives slightly when she steps on it and finds a thick wooden stick underneath. She gets to work immediately, prying the nails loose and fashioning a weapon. She's done waiting to be rescued. She's getting herself ready. Outside in the darkness, Danny has finally reached the compound's heart. He's been observing from a distance, mapping where they took his daughter. He works his way around the perimeter, taking out sentries one by one without making a sound, until he reaches the room where he spotted a girl being held. He kicks through the door, ready to destroy whatever he finds, and then stops. It isn't Alex, it's Lily. She looks at him and makes him a deal right then and there. She tells him she can lead him to his daughter, but she needs him to get her clear of this compound first. Danny moves fast, gets Lily out into the safety of the trees, and she points him toward the separate building where Alex is being held. But as he closes in to finish it, everything turns against him. Angus has positioned himself and a group of armed men in an ambush. Rather than killing Danny outright, Angus wants to be cruel about it. He drags Danny into Alex's room and locks them both inside, intending for them to spend whatever time they have left watching each other suffer. It's the worst decision Angus has ever made. He had no idea that Alex had spent her time in that room methodically pulling up the floorboards and loosening every nail she could find. Between Danny's strength and Alex's preparation, they tear an exit through the floor and disappear into the night. They find Lily, but she won't go any further. She won't leave the island without her son. She tells Danny that Thomas is their way out. He loves her, and he's a good man, and he has access to the keys for the only boat that can get them off the island. They form a plan. Danny creates a series of distractions to pull the guards in the wrong direction. While he's doing that, Alex and Lily slip back into the compound to get the baby. Lily finds Thomas and pleads with him to come. She tells him their child deserves a real life, not this. Thomas doesn't hesitate long. He agrees to meet them at the docks and heads for the main cabin to steal the boat keys. Stanley realizes the room is empty and loses control of his composure entirely, but he still has one move left that no one anticipated. His voice comes through the radio, and what he says stops Danny cold. Somewhere during the chaos, the cult managed to take Jenny. Stanley appears in the open with Danny's wife in his grip, a gun at her side, and delivers his terms. Danny comes out and gives himself up, or she dies in front of him. Everything collapses at once. Thomas is caught in the act of stealing the keys and dragged out in front of the entire community. Facing the crowd, he says what he should have said a long time ago. He calls the so-called family a lie and names Stanley for the monster he is. Stanley answers him with a bullet. Thomas falls, and the community stands in stunned silence. In the confusion, Alex has slipped into the room where Stanley keeps his weapons. She breaks the lock, but before she can arm herself, one of the cult women gets in her way and blocks her path. Then that same woman turns to look at the courtyard where Stanley just gunned down Thomas, who was her own son. Whatever loyalty she held onto snaps in that instant. Grief turns to fury, and she steps aside and lets Alex go. Out in the clearing, Danny steps into the open and drops his weapon, giving himself up to protect Jenny. Stanley stands over him, savoring it, ready to pull the trigger and settle the score for his son's death. Then a single shot cracks from the tree line. Alex steps out holding a rifle, having put a bullet through the cult leader and ended his grip on this island forever. With Stanley gone, the community's hold dissolves around them. The deadliest man alive has completed the mission he came here to finish. Danny pulls Jenny and Alex close, and they leave the island behind, headed toward a life none of them will ever have to fight to hold on to again. The nightmare is finally over. That's the brutal truth of what happens when you target the wrong family. They thought he was just a soldier who'd hung up his uniform. What they found out instead is that some men become far more dangerous when they have something real to fight for. If you loved this breakdown, drop a like and subscribe to Cinnamon for more stories about the deadliest heroes in cinema. Thanks for watching.